You're now watching Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.
All right, Jimmy Ott and Paul Stone with our college football best bets. Let's get right to it. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Well, they got tripped up earlier in the year against Northern Illinois out of the MAC. Northern Illinois getting a little improving a little bit after 1-3. They've won their last two. If you had them -14, they missed the 2 extra points. Yes, I'm complaining a little bit because we had them. But anyway, the Irish, man, they're public to begin with, Paul. But when they cover 5 straight like they've done, well, you're dealing with some inflated numbers here. Here comes Virginia, and what a horrible scene, and it's something that Tony Elliott had to do with, and he's really done done it in a very classy manner up in Charlottesville. And now he has his team at 5-4. Tough 2-game stretch here against Notre Dame and SMU before they play against Virginia Tech in their rivalry. Need 1 to get bowl eligible. This line moving up a little bit as expected. When the Irish cover 5 in a row, they're going to get backed. They're 23-50.5 right now at Bet Rivers, Paul.
You know, first of all, as you indicated, Jimmy, Notre Dame is rolling, no question about it, since they shockingly lost to Northern Illinois 16-14 in week 2 as a 28-point favorite. They have rebounded in grand fashion. They've won 7 straight games to keep their playoff hopes intact. They've also covered their past 5 games, so 5 straight covers, and they've won their last 4 by an average of 34 points a game. And those victories over some pretty decent teams, Stanford, Georgia Tech, Navy, and Florida State. So Notre Dame really playing at a high level. And as you also indicated, when the Irish get going, an adoring public loves to bet them. But at some point, as sports bettors, you know, the tariff becomes prohibitive. And I think it becomes prudent to jump off the bandwagon and closely examine the other side. And in this case, the other side is Virginia. And as you indicated also, they enter with a 5-4 record. And you also mentioned that the final 3 games, they got a tough 3-game stretch to try to get 1 victory to gain bowl eligibility. Those games, of course, this weekend against Notre Dame. And then, as you also mentioned, SMU and Virginia Tech to end. But the thing about the Cavaliers this year is they have been at their best against the better opponents on their schedule this year. First of all, they're coming off a 24-19 win at Pittsburgh as a 7-point underdog. Earlier this season, getting 7.5 points at home against Louisville. They were leading the Cardinals late, gave up a touchdown in the final couple of minutes to Louisville, lost that game 24-20. And then the following week at Clemson as a 3-touchdown underdog, the Cavaliers, they slipped in that back door, got a backdoor cover on a late touchdown pass, lost that game to Clemson 48-31, but got the money for their supporters. Couple of point spread trends here. Since the pandemic season of 2020, as a large underdog, getting 20 points or more, Virginia 4-1 against the spread. And also, they've been very good off straight-up victories since 2020. 15-6 against the spread off a straight-up victory since 2020. Big number we're looking at here, 23 points. I like Virginia plus 23 over the Irish.
All right, so the Cavaliers plus the 23 and an inflated line against Notre Dame this week. Hey, earn a chance at $10,000 in bonus money with the Bet Rivers Prop Packs. Place NBA same-game parlays to collect player card pro packs and earn rewards. You win based on how your player performs. Log into BetRivers.com or the Bet Rivers app to place your bet and get your pack. Let's go to the Big 12 and Iowa State Cyclones, man. Seemed like that crown was heavy that you like to talk about when things are going good, because they started out 7-0 and then they have lost their next 2. And but even before they lost their first game, they were very fortunate in that game at home against Central Florida. I mean, probably should have lost that one as well. Now they're back to just the pressure is off, the undefeated season, the possible playoff, and all that. And they play Cincinnati at home. Iowa State is 8-52.5 against 5-4 Cincinnati. Cincinnati losing at home to West Virginia, kind of reminding us of their sort of mediocrity. They're okay. They're not terrible. They can play with some teams they can. Iowa State's a better team. They're at home. Traditionally, it's a tougher place to play. And now they've got that pressure off of them. I think they'll return back to form. If they had played this one games back or 3 games back, you're probably looking at close to 14 points. So it looked like you got a buy low spot here with the Cyclones. Back home, less pressure, -8 at home against Cincinnati, Paul.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm really, somewhat surprised at Iowa State's recent woes. I thought they would be there till the bitter end in that Big 12 race. But like you said, a couple of weeks ago, this would have been a double-digit point spread by which the Cyclones would have been favored. So I like Iowa State here slightly as well. So I think they get back on the right track. Matt Campbell's teams have done well there in Ames, rebounding traditionally off straight-up losses as well.
Don't forget our friends with the Squares over at Bet Rivers. Players can play same-game parlays on college football and NFL games to earn Squares. Our exclusive Squares game offers additional chances at profit boosts, bonus bets, and many $10,000 jackpots. Visit BetRivers.com or the Bet Rivers app for details. Next one, let's go to the ACC. That's right, SMU is in the ACC. Boston College visiting Dallas to take on the Ponies here. Ponies have won 5 of their last 6 to get to 8-1. Remember that quarterback change, and boy, it really helped them after they lost that home game on a Friday night to BYU. It's a pretty big favorite in that game as well. Speaking of quarterback changes, the Boston College Eagles in Boston College early in the season, they were against Florida State. Castellanos was a big story for them. Dual threat quarterback. He can beat you with his arm, can beat you with his legs. Really difficult, kind of buy-in sometimes. The poor man, Kyler Murray, kind of a fit for defenders, pass rushers to kind of wrap him up. But at 5-4, Bill O'Brien is going to make a change. The new quarterback this week will be Grayson James. Been okay in limited time. So SMU, 18.5. You think that might be a little bit too much here, Paul?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you mentioned the fact Boston College has kind of been in the news this week, probably for reasons they would not like, as Bill O'Brien benches Thomas Castellanos in favor of Grayson James. And Castellanos, in response, enters the transfer portal. So I assume he might not even be suited up Saturday in Dallas. You look at last season especially. Castellanos, a very athletic guy. He rushed for 1,113 yards last year, averaged 5.2 yards per carry. But this year, with even less of a threat of a passing attack, his numbers on the ground have just suffered dramatically. This year, he's carried 93 times, 194 yards, 2.1 yards per carry after averaging over 5 yards per carry last year. He has improved in the passing game. I mean, he threw 14 interceptions last year in 13 games. This year, he only has 5 picks through 8 games. I mean, Boston College didn't throw the ball all that great last year. They ranked 117th nationally this year in passing offense at just 169 yards a game. A little bit peculiar. I'm not, I didn't think that Castellanos' play from the outside looking in merited a change. I don't think I think they've had a pretty decent year, but you never know the internal workings of a locker room, relationships, attitudes, things like that. So who knows exactly what's all in play here. But obviously Grayson James, the quarterback, Saturday for Boston College. I often speak of playing numbers, not teams, and this game is a classic case of that. When I make my numbers on Saturday and Sunday, I'm normally going to start, once I get to this point, with creating kind of a window. I'm going to say a team's going to should be favored by at least 14, but no more than 17. I'll put them in a window of 2 typical margins of victory, and that's what I did here. I put them between that. SMU is between a 14 and a 17-point favorite, settled on 14.5. I referenced 3 other power rating systems for the sake of comparison. They all had SMU less than 17 as well. So I think this is just a situation where you're paying a premium these days to play those ponies. So I'm going to look on the other side. I'm going to take Boston College. Number's a little too high. Give me the Eagles plus 18.5 over the Mustangs.
Somewhere Sherwood Blunt raising a glass to the ponies in this run that they've had. What a lot of excitement that they've built. And Lord knows they got some money at SMU. So, I mean, now something to feel good and to really feel to back. You watch for the ponies in the future. Nobody going to outbid them. I got to apologize to our audience last week. First time this year I picked the LSU Tigers. Could not have been any more wrong on that one. I mean, that was rough. We went back and looked at the tape too, and they got overmatched, but they also undisciplined, running out of lanes, poor alignment. To be completely blindsided by a running quarterback after you got burned by quarterback after an extra week to prepare. This is absolute low point for the confidence level in head coach Brian Kelly, who came over from Notre Dame with a $100 million contract. So LSU don't have to worry about the big head and overconfidence here when they go into the swamp on Saturday. They're 5 now in 54 over Florida's 4-5. Billy Napier, before the Texas game, was given the vote that say we're going to keep him back. Keep in mind, Billy Napier, Brent Venables at Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley at USC, and Brian Kelly were all hired in the same offseason. At a low point of confidence for Brian Kelly, still better off of all of the other 3 coaches. And listen, those are places that they have some resources and expect some results at the Oklahoma, USC, and Florida. Florida Lagway, he dressed out, warmed up, didn't come out of the locker room at the second time with pads on. That hamstring seems to be lingering, but this is either or. I'd rather him be out. I think it's a major dip down to the Ivy League quarterback, but I think this is one where the embarrassment, you don't get any lower. They're not exactly big men on campus right now for LSU. The 6-3 Tigers, I think, will go into the swamp and take care of business here. So, again, kind of a low point for both of these teams because Florida was embarrassed too. I mean, manhandled, actually, by Texas. So, I think LSU, the stronger team here, certainly. I'll lay the 5 points on the road at the Swamp, Paul.
Yeah, this game, I tell you, for me, it's a head scratch of a handicap because I'm really concerned about what LSU has left in the emotional tank. They were a team that clearly had their sights on a playoff berth. Those goals are pretty much gone now. And also Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, there's no other way around it. He's thrown 9 interceptions in the last 5 games, and that's problematic. And Florida also, as bad as they looked against Texas this past Saturday, they are a different team with DJ Lagway at quarterback, and it sounds like he's going to play. But at the same time, LSU's got overall, they've got better talent than Florida. And if they do come in with, any level of focus, I could see it being kind of like when A&M went into Florida in week 2, I guess, or week 3 and took care of the Gators. Could be that same kind of ball game. But I'm just a little bit leery of LSU's mindset. Be a very interesting game to watch, and it'll be a very interesting remainder of the season through the bowl game to see how LSU responds and how they finish the season this year.
Well, if you're wondering on the emotional level of LSU, they didn't use a whole lot against Alabama, Paul. So, I mean, that was an uninspiring effort. I mean, that place was ready to blow the top off on Saturday night. The rain didn't affect them at all, and it just the team didn't give them anything. So, all right, we'll move on. Let's go to the East Coast here. James Madison and Old Dominion. And Old Dominion had at 4-5, James Madison at 7-2. Madison here on the road in Norfolk is 3-point favorites. 52.5 is the total right now at Bet Rivers. ODU has won 3 of 4, and their one loss last week at Appalachian State in Boone. They did outgain the App State by over 100 yards, but 4 turnovers and 0 for 2 on 4th down attempts. So 6, Appalachian State had 1 turnover and 1 failed 4th down attempt. So 6-2, a -4 basically in the turnover margin there, and that tripped them up. You're looking at them to bounce back and kind of tighten things up, those mistakes, and move on with the victory here. Old Dominion is +3.
Yeah, that was a tough loss at Appalachian State last week for Old Dominion. But I really think, even though the results in terms of wins and losses have not been overwhelming, I really think Ricky Ronnie, the head coach there at Old Dominion, now in his fifth year at Old Dominion. He's the former Penn State offensive coordinator. I think he's done a pretty solid job there in Norfolk. The Monarchs this year, they're always going to be picked low, it seems like. They were picked to finish 6th in the 7-team Sun Belt East Division. But here we sit in mid-November. They're tied for second with James Madison at 3-2, just one game behind division co-leaders Georgia Southern and Marshall. Ronnie and Old Dominion, they seem to be at their best when they're cast in the role of the underdog. They have covered 13 of their last 17 games as the betting underdog, dating back to late in 2022. And since the start of last year, so not even 2 full seasons, Old Dominion has won 7 games outright as the betting underdog. So they've been very proficient as the betting underdog. And those outright wins as the underdog includes victories this year over a pretty good Bowling Green team, over a solid Texas State team, and over Georgia State. Old Dominion, they're coming off their second bye of the season. They've already knocked off a similar caliber of opponent in upsetting Bowling Green and Texas State. They were actually getting 10 points in both of those outright victories. James Madison, they hadn't been very good as a road favorite. In fact, they've lost their last 2 road games outright as a road favorite. They lost at Louisiana Monroe and then subsequently also lost at Georgia Southern. I think Old Dominion gets the, not only covers the spread +3, I think the Monarchs get the outright victory Saturday over James Madison in Norfolk.
Yeah, a couple of teams that have moved to Division I or FCS, FBS rather, recently. Old Dominion in their 12th year as a Division I member. So, and James Madison not too long ago as well. But yeah, the two teams in the vicinity in that East Coast area, very close to each other, that have made some strides in their football program since making the jump up. Speaking of tough beats, that was Wake Forest at home against Cal. Cal rips off at a touchdown with about a minute to go, just over a minute to go, to cover the spread in Winston-Salem last week. Now they go to North Carolina, and a lot of the North Carolina supporters there is kind of ready to move on. The Mac Brown second stint in Chapel Hill, it's been okay. I mean, it hasn't been terrible. His first one was outstanding. That's why he got the Texas job, because of his success in Chapel Hill. But they were at 3-4, but now they've won their last 2, and you do it in typical North Carolina style. They're outscoring people, but who have they really beaten? It's not the toughest of teams. They go to Virginia, but Florida State, everybody's beaten them this year. So just wonder how much longer for Mac Brown before they move on. But Wake Forest, coming into this one, I think that failed to cover against Cal has this line just pushed up a little bit over that magic number of 10. I thought this would be right around 7, maybe a shade over, being at Chapel Hill. But I'm taking that 10.5. It was 11. You may get 11 at some points. Total is 64. So I'll see another one of these typical Wake Forest, North Carolina shootouts. Lots of points in this one. And I think that the 10.5 is just too much here. I'm going to take the Demon Deacons plus a 10.5 at Chapel Hill against North Carolina.
Yeah, I just looked real quick because I was curious. It came to mind. North Carolina never really has done well the last couple of years as a double-digit favorite. And I looked at the last couple of seasons as you opened with your comments there. North Carolina only 1-6 against the spread the last 2 years as a double-digit favorite. So they included the big, I think it was 70-50 loss to James Madison earlier this year. So this is not their most preferred point spread role. And this is, Winston-Salem and Chapel Hill relatively close. It's a big rivalry there in the state of North Carolina. Wake Forest can score some points, and North Carolina typically gives up some points. So, I feel what you're feeling there, and I think the Demon Deacons probably going to keep this one within single digits against the Tar Heels on Saturday.
Yeah, a short drive from Winston-Salem to Chapel Hill. So exactly an hour and 15 minutes. It's not in a triangle where, NC State, Duke, and North Carolina are all right next to each other, but just a hop, skip, and away. All right, so that's our best bets this week. We do it each and every week. We look at the Michigan teams. We look at the high-profile teams, ones that are going to draw the biggest TV ratings and the biggest handle, and then we do our best bets 3 times a week through college football. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott on the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.